Helen, after experiencing betrayal from her sister Mina and her ex-fiancé Enrico, seeks a new chance at happiness. At her sister's wedding, Helen arrives with her new husband. Mina was shocked to see who the guy was. It can't be true. Some time ago I had a fiancé, but I didn't get to share my life with him because of my sister. Back then I was sunk in deep despair. However, now I have found a new happiness. I want to show it to my sister and my ex-fiancé. My name is Helen. I'm not particularly beautiful, just an ordinary office worker. But back then there was a man who had promised to marry me named Enrico. He was a handsome guy who worked for a renowned company known for being very good-looking. We were very happy, a happiness I thought would last forever. However, cruel reality treated me harshly. I couldn't marry Enrico, and the cause of that was my sister Mina. She has always been interested in fashion and more concerned about her appearance than I am. Mina has always been beautiful and, as a result, was popular among boys since high school, even being the amateur model for a fashion magazine. Mina dreamed of becoming a model after finishing university. I used to work at a company, and a colleague invited me to dinner. That colleague was Enrico. After meeting a few times and going out to eat, something unexpected happened. Enrico invited me to dinner after work, and of course I had no reason to refuse. After dinner he confessed his feelings for me. I was surprised by his sudden confession, but I also had feelings for him and we started dating. A year later Enrico proposed to me. I was very happy, of course, and I accepted his proposal. A few days later Enrico and I went to my parents' house to announce our engagement and share the news. My parents, of course, were delighted. We discussed wedding plans and I was very content. But not everyone was happy. My younger sister, Mina, was surprised to hear about my engagement and even more shocked when she found out who I was engaged to. Mina, who was more attractive, had been courted by several guys and always looked down on me. She was offended because the sister she considered plain was getting married before her to a successful man from a famous company. This further wounded Mina's pride, but I was completely oblivious to her feelings. One day Mina asked if she could exchange contact information with Enrico since he would be her brother-in-law. We saw no reason to refuse, so we agreed. While I was about to leave my job, I had to stay late several times for the transition. On a day when my parents were out of town, Mina took a decisive step, which was probably a plan she had from the beginning. She planned to move out of the family home as soon as I got married and start living with Enrico. Mina called both me and Enrico, pretending to be sick and alone at home as our parents were traveling. Concerned, Enrico rushed home. When I arrived, Mina confessed that it had all been a lie, revealing that she and Enrico were seeing each other. I was completely lost and confused. That's when she crossed the line and continued, saying they were planning to get married. She invited me to the wedding reception even though I didn't want to attend the ceremony. After that I was devastated. Mina had taken my fiancé away from me. Both of my parents were very concerned. I spent some time locked in my room. Since I had already left my job, there wasn't much I could do. I received messages from my co-workers asking about the wedding date. I said I was planning a simple ceremony, just with family. Months later I started a new life in an unknown place, with the desire to be truly happy this time. After separating from Enrico, I was isolated for a while, but gradually began to feel a certain excitement. I decided to move out and live on my own, in a completely unknown but pleasant and peaceful place, rich in vegetation. My parents didn't stop me and even helped me a lot during the move. After moving, while I was resting, I heard this from my mother a few days later. She told me that Enrico went to her house and explained everything that happened between us, and then apologized. I didn't understand why my parents were apologizing. Of course, what Enrico did is unforgivable. His parents also came to apologize. They even knelt down, but they also found out about everything that happened from us. We know it's difficult for you to see and forgive them, but she is also our daughter. Both my father and my mother were distressed. She had done something terrible, of course they couldn't forgive someone like that, but she's their daughter. I didn't listen to them, and it seems like she has been seeking Enrico since then. Enrico comes to their house every day at the same time, apologizing and seeking approval for their marriage. Due to Enrico's actions, my parents had no choice but to accept. That's why they apologized to me for accepting the marriage. Honestly, I no longer cared, but I could painfully understand my parents' feelings. Now all of this is in the past. There is no problem. Besides, in the future I will meet someone better. I responded positively, holding back tears. My mother was crying and my father seemed accustomed, but I told them that when I have children I would rely on them a lot. Both my father and mother responded with smiles. My mother was concerned and told me not to hesitate to reach out if anything happened. As I began to adjust to my new life and finally found a bit of peace, I started working at a small restaurant. The team was small, but the place was very bright and I really liked the friendly atmosphere. The manager's name was Fabian and the part-time staff used to tease him a lot. It was enjoyable to observe these playful interactions and feel the welcoming environment. A few months after starting to work, a fateful event occurred that would change my future. Christopher confessed that something happened when he was driving me home after work. To be honest, I was unsure. Christopher was a very good person, above all, very kind. He had an attractive appearance and personality that appealed to the opposite sex. But I was still haunted by that incident and afraid of being abandoned again. Christopher seemed to sense my hesitation and told me I didn't need to give an immediate answer. He went home and spent the day there. The situation was a bit uncomfortable for a while, but thanks to the usual banter of the part-time staff and the kindness of Fabian, I didn't worry too much. I assumed that my heart had already made a decision. During the break, I learned something about Christopher. Apparently, he had been betrayed by someone he was dating and had a terrible experience in his previous job before this restaurant. Christopher and I shared a similar experience. Both of us had been betrayed by someone we loved. That day I decided to tell Christopher why I had come to this place. When I finished, Christopher said that I had handled it very well. He told me that I was someone who, despite the pain, stood up and looked forward. I was elated and realized it was exactly what I wanted to hear. I did my best, just like Christopher. So, I gave my response to Christopher's confession that day. From that day on, we were together. However, the part-time staff's teasing at the restaurant increased, but they were genuinely happy for us. Congratulations, we wish you eternal happiness. It was too early for that phrase, so eventually, I will say it again. Christopher was a bit nervous and I laughed. It was pure happiness. It was a typical day to some extent. I was proposed to for the second time in my life. Of course, I accepted the proposal. I was determined to find happiness this time and believed I could be truly happy with Christopher. Although it was the first time I was going to my parents' house after the incident, they were happy. I told them everything about Christopher and they said, "Please make our daughter happy." I promised that I would make Helen happy. We chatted a bit more, then my father said somewhat excitedly, they said that maybe an invitation would come, but I didn't need to worry. Anyway, I wasn't bothered because I was also happy. In fact, I wanted to show off my happiness. When I told everything to my parents a few days later, an invitation to the wedding arrived. We decided to attend, of course. I replied that both of us, Christopher and I, would be going. We were only legally together as I was planning the wedding. We thought our parents and relatives would feel too pressured if we got married on the same day. We had promised to celebrate our wedding when things calmed down. On the wedding day, Christopher and I went together to the celebration venue. We met Mina and Enrico, whom we hadn't seen in a long time. Enrico seemed a bit tired during the family introductions. I introduced Christopher, saying, "This is my husband, Christopher. I'm very proud of him." For some reason, Mina seemed visibly surprised when I introduced Christopher. It was a memorable moment. On the other hand, there was something I was desperate to ask Enrico: what happened between them on the day when neither my parents nor I were around. At first, Enrico had difficulty speaking, but gradually began to share. Apparently, when Mina called that day, claiming to be suddenly ill, Enrico decided to wait for me. Mina came with strong alcoholic drinks, saying it would be a waste not to enjoy them. Enrico, who wasn't a heavy drinker, took a few shots and ended up getting drunk. So, according to them, Mina saw her chance and began to seduce Enrico. He was so drunk that he couldn't make sensible judgments, so he succumbed to her advances. After all, she was stunning and had an incredible appearance, so it's understandable that a regular guy would give in to her insinuations. However, Enrico and I were engaged. Nonetheless, Enrico succumbed to temptation. From that moment on, he started paying attention to Mina. Even after sharing this story, Enrico continued to apologize to me. But at that moment he seemed so insignificant to me. Honestly, I couldn't care less. It just relieved me to know the truth. Meanwhile, Christopher and Mina were talking about something and I became curious. But as Mina's wedding was approaching, I decided to ask later. On the way home, I asked Christopher why he seemed a bit disturbed when talking to Mina. He told me that Mina was his ex-girlfriend who had betrayed him. That wasn't all. She also caused him to lose his job. I was completely surprised. The world seemed so small, and the fact that she was responsible for Christopher's store closing made everything even more shocking. I decided to investigate further. Apparently, a few months after starting to date Christopher, she had an affair with a certain designer. She thought it would be more beneficial for her to date someone in the fashion industry, even though she was dating Christopher. Upon discovering this fact accidentally, Christopher naturally became upset with Mina. But Mina was also upset with him and they broke up. However, Mina's anger did not diminish. She created a fake photo of strange objects on the dishes taken at Christopher's restaurant and shared it on social media. At that time, Mina was also working as a model and had many followers. So the photos spread quickly. This caught the attention of Christopher's boss, who had already left the business. Due to the drop in revenue, the restaurant ended up closing and Christopher was fired, bearing the responsibility. Naturally, Christopher harbored resentment for this incident, but since he didn't know who was responsible, he didn't know where to direct his anger. He only found out the truth when a friend invited him for a drink. Christopher's girlfriend's friend knew Mina and saw her boasting on social media about causing the closure of a restaurant. Christopher didn't know that the now-closed restaurant was his. Christopher found the culprit. He couldn't do anything more and decided to start anew somewhere else. That's when he met me. I apologized to Christopher for the terrible things my sister had done. Honestly, I was the sister of the person who had ruined his life. I didn't know what to do and seriously thought Christopher could hate me. But he said it was in the past and that it wasn't my fault. I felt sincerely relieved. And once again, we decided to be happy together. Later on, Mina finally got her punishment. She was scheduled for a photo shoot and the chosen location was our home of all places. It was lush and green, ideal for taking good photos. However, the incident happened at one of Christopher's restaurants. I didn't work there anymore, so I found out about it later. As soon as they entered, Christopher and Mina recognized each other and Christopher said they couldn't come in. He denied entry to the group of 18. Of course, the staff was upset and asked what was happening. Christopher explained everything that Mina had done in the past and the difficulties he had faced because of her. He had solid evidence of her criminal background. He said he didn't want to go through this again and refused to let her in. No one could say anything. Mina seemed to have turned pale. Furthermore, Christopher said he would tell his past to the company president for which she had applied and was about to join. The person who reviewed the case was shocked and asked Christopher to let it go, but Christopher's anger did not diminish. In the end, Mina's photo shoot was cancelled and the incident spread throughout the industry, ruining her dream of becoming a model. No one wanted to deal with someone who had caused such a big scandal in the past. Additionally, my mother told me that Enrico's company had been going through difficulties recently and he was now a candidate for a demotion. She seemed concerned about their future. Despite all this, Christopher and I spent our days happily as usual. Today, on the eve of our long-awaited wedding, both of us have gone through difficult times in the past, but now we are very happy. Additionally, there is a new life in my belly. Congratulations, we wish you a lifetime of happiness, says the team at the store where we met. Thank you, we respond happily. Thus, before everyone, we promise to love our family and be happy forever. If you liked this story, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.